Welcome to the Alaska Migrant Education Program video training series. The purpose of this video is to provide guidance to district federal programs directors and migrant coordinators in the design and execution of the district's migrant education program. In this video, I'll be covering the basics of administering the program. The Title I Part C program is authorized by the Elementary and Secondary Education Act as amended by the Every Student Succeeds Act. Within the statute, it is found in Section 1301 through 1309. The Title I-C program also has regulations that expand upon the statute. They can be found at 34 CFR 200.81 through 200.89. The U.S. Department of Education has issued non-regulatory guidance and Q&As to help clarify the rules outlined in the statute and regulations. The goal of the Migrant Education Program, or MEP, is to ensure that all migratory children reach challenging academic standards and graduate with a high school diploma or complete a GED that prepares them for responsible citizenship, further learning, and productive employment. Before covering the requirements of the Migrant Education Program, it is important to understand who is eligible for this program. Alaska's migratory children are identified and recruited by trained migrant education staff in each school district. In Alaska, the term migratory child means a child or youth who is entitled to free public education or is not yet at a grade level for which free public education is offered, made a qualifying move due to economic necessity across school district boundaries, or 20 more miles to a temporary residence in a district of more than 15,000 square miles in the preceding 36 months, as a migratory agricultural worker or migratory fisher, or with or to join a parent, guardian, or spouse who is a migratory agricultural worker or migratory fisher. Separate videos provide detailed information on the identification and recruitment of migratory children. In this section, we will talk about the funding formula the U.S. Department of Education Office of Migrant Education uses to allocate funds to states and how the Alaska Department of Education and Early Development uses the funds received. Before discussing the state funding formula, it is important to understand how data used in the funding formula is reported to the U.S. Department of Education. The Migrant Education Program reporting is based on a 12-month period beginning September 1st and ending August 31st. This is called the performance period. In order for a child to be included in a performance period, a child must be migrant eligible for at least one day during the September 1st through August 31st performance period. In addition to being eligible for at least one day during the performance period, they must have resided in the state for at least one day during the performance period. There are two types of child counts used in the federal funding formula. They are called Category 1 and Category 2. The Category 1 count consists of all eligible migratory children, ages 3 through 21, who meet the statutory and regulatory definition of a migratory child and who reside in the state for at least one or more days during the September 1st through August 31st performance period. The Category 2 child count consists of all eligible migratory children who were served for one or more days in a MEP-funded summer or intersession program in the state during the September 1st through August 31st performance period. The Category 2 is a subset of the Category 1 count, meaning Category 1 is a full year count and Category 2 is just the children served in the summer or intersession. The U.S. Department of Education allocates Title I Part C funds to states through a statutory formula based primarily on the state's migratory child count, the number of migratory children who received summer or intersession services, and the cost of education in each state. As noted on the screen, the formula for determining allocations to states is the average Category 1 child count based on the data from the preceding 3 years, plus the Category 2 child count for the previous year, all multiplied by the 40% of the average per pupil expenditure in the state. As you can see, providing summer services to migratory children is weighted heavily in the funding formula to states, since it's not the average of 3 years. On the screen, you'll see the years of data that would go into the state fiscal year 23 allocation. The U.S. Department of Education would use the average of the 2020, 21, 2019, 20, and 2018-19 Category 1 counts. They would use just the 2020-21 Category 2 child count, and then they would use the state per pupil expenditures from NCES that is available spring 2022. Once the Alaska Department of Education and Early Development receives Alaska's Title I-C grant award, we break the funds out into 3 pots. The first pot is for general state administration of the program, such as compliance monitoring and reviewing and approving applications. The next pot is for unique state-level migrant program administration. This includes administrative activities that are unique to the program, such as statewide identification and recruitment training, migrant student database, and our continuous improvement cycle processes. The final and largest bucket is for subgranting funds to school districts. It is time for a quick knowledge check. Please feel free to pause your video after each question to give yourself more time to answer. True or false? States report counts of migratory children every 3 years. False. States report counts to migratory children annually. True or false? In general, the allocation formula to states is mainly based on the average of the previous 3 years' Category 1 child counts and the previous year Category 2 child count. True. The Title I-C allocation formula is largely based on the average of the previous 3 years' Category 1 child counts and the previous year Category 2 child count. The allocation also includes the state's average per pupil expenditure. True or false? The performance period is August 1 through July 31st. False. The performance period is September 1st through August 31st. Once the Alaska Department of Education and Early Development receives funds from the U.S. Department of Education, it subgrants funds to districts. This section, we will cover what subgrants are given to districts and the funding formula the Alaska Department of Education and Early Development uses to determine district allocations. Districts operating a local migrant education program, or MEP, may receive a few different grants. First, each school district operating a local MEP is funded through a formula subgrant. We will discuss the district funding formula later on in this presentation. School districts are authorized by deed to expend MEP funds through the approval of a grant application called the ESEA Consolidated Application. This application is a single consolidated application of all ESEA formula entitlements. In addition to the main formula grant, districts may receive smaller grants. These include the Migrant Literacy Grant, the State Parent Advisory Council, or PAC, Travel Grant, and the Fall Training Staff Development Grant. The Migrant Literacy Grant is a supplemental grant for districts who choose to participate. The goal of this supplemental grant is to support districts in improving literacy for migratory children. State PAC travel grants are provided to districts that nominated a current state PAC representative. It is the district's responsibility to book any travel and accommodations for the state PAC representative to attend in-person meetings. DEED provides annual training on the identification and recruitment of migratory children. When this training occurs in person, DEED issues staff development grants to reimburse district staff travel expenses. DEED allocates Title I-C funds to school districts using a formula. The formula takes into consideration the district's identification and recruitment needs, availability of other funds, numbers of migratory children served and not served, proficiency levels of migratory children, and the number of migratory children identified as priority for services. It is time for a quick knowledge check. Please feel free to pause your video after each question to give yourself more time to answer. True or false? Identification and recruitment of migratory children plays a large role in districts' Title I-C allocations. True. The number of identified children in each district is used in the allocation formula. If districts are not actively identifying and recruiting migratory children, their allocations will be affected. True or false? Districts apply for the Migrant Literacy Grant separately from the main formula funds. True. Districts may choose to apply for the Migrant Literacy Grant in the spring of each year. It is not part of the main formula application. True or false? Districts budget and plan for their Title I-C formula funds through the ESEA consolidated application. True. Districts complete a budget and provide program details for the Title I-C formula funds in the ESEA consolidated application. Both the state and districts must work through the continuous improvement cycle. In this section, we will discuss the continuous improvement cycle and the state's guiding documents. In planning the Migrant Education Program, or MEP, districts should consider the annual continuous improvement cycle. In this cycle, each step in developing a program, assessing needs, identifying strategies, implementing strategies, and evaluating the results builds on the previous activity and informs the subsequent activity. The needs assessment provides an opportunity to review data about migratory children and review the progress towards program goals. The district cannot reasonably design a MEP or determine the grade levels and instructional areas on which individual projects should focus without information on the unique educational needs of all eligible children identified in the district. The needs assessment, in turn, informs the service delivery plan. In the process of developing a plan for providing services to migratory children, a planning team reviews the strategies, prioritizes them, and develops a plan for implementing and evaluating them, such as creating local measurable program outcomes. The program evaluation assesses the level of implementation, and the MEP uses the results to improve its delivery of services. The MEP also uses the program evaluation to determine its progress of migratory children towards the state and district measurable goals. The program evaluation feeds into the needs assessment process, and the cycle continues. The Alaska Migrant Education Program is based on 3 guiding documents required of all states. They are the Comprehensive Needs Assessment, or CNA, the Service Delivery Plan, or SDP, and the Evaluation Report. The primary purpose of a CNA is to guide the overall design of the MEP on a statewide basis. The Needs Assessment is a systematic assessment and decision-making process that determines needs, examines their nature and causes, and sets priorities for future action. States are required to develop a migrant-specific plan that will assist migratory children in making progress towards achievement on the state's long-term goals and measurements of interim progress. This plan, known as the Service Delivery Plan, or SDP, outlines the delivery and evaluation of the services provided to migratory children through their MEP. The SDP is a comprehensive plan that describes the services the state will provide directly or through districts to meet the unique educational needs of migratory children. In other words, it is the state's operational plan for the MEP. States are required to determine the effectiveness of the MEP in their written evaluation report that measures the implementation and results of the program. Implementation evaluation focuses on the extent to which programs were delivered as intended. Evaluating program results involves focusing on measuring student performance against the state's measurable program outcomes, or MPOs, and the state's performance targets. States use the results of the evaluation to improve the services provided to migratory children. The most recent statewide comprehensive needs assessment, statewide service delivery plan, and evaluation report can be found on DEED's Title I-C webpage. It is time for a quick knowledge check. Please feel free to pause your video after each question to give yourself more time to answer. True or false? States must identify the unique educational needs of migratory children. True, states must conduct a statewide comprehensive needs assessment of migratory children. Alaska's most recent comprehensive needs assessment can be found on DEED's Title I-C webpage. True or false? Local migrant education programs do not have to align with the state's service delivery plan. False. The state service delivery plan outlines the delivery and evaluation of services provided to migratory children statewide. Districts' local migrant education program services must align with the strategies outlined in the state's service delivery plan. Where can you find the most recent state service delivery plan? DEED's Title I-C webpage at education.alaska.gov/ESEA/Title I-C. By accepting Title I-C funds, school districts must carry out certain requirements outlined in the statute and regulations. In this section, we will talk about the district's requirements and ESEA monitoring. Districts that receive Title I Part C funds must carry out a variety of activities as a condition of participating in the program. These include, but are not limited to, identifying and recruiting migratory children and youth, establishing and implementing a system of quality controls for the proper identification and recruitment of eligible migratory children, promoting interstate and intrastate coordination of services for migratory children, conducting parent and family engagement in the planning and operation of the local migrant education program, identifying and addressing the unique educational needs of migratory children, and evaluating the effectiveness of the migrant education program to improve services provided to migratory children. Districts are required to have several written processes in place. DEED has created an optional guiding documents template that districts can utilize to help ensure they are meeting the requirements for the identification and recruitment plan, quality control plan, needs assessment, service delivery plan, and evaluation plan. The template can be found on DEED's Title I-C webpage. By accepting ESEA funds, DEED and school districts agree to carry out the requirements outlined in the statute and regulations. The U.S. Department of Education conducts compliance monitoring of states, and DEED conducts compliance monitoring of school districts at subgrants ESEA funds too. When conducting ESEA compliance monitoring, DEED has 4 goals. 1. Ensure compliance with federal statute and regulations. 2. Build relationships between DEED and the district. 3. Provide technical assistance. And 4. Gather examples of practices and strategies that can be shared with other districts. Districts should review and familiarize themselves with the ESEA monitoring form annually. The ESEA monitoring form can be found on DEED's Forms page at education.alaska.gov/forms. It is time for a quick knowledge check. Please feel free to pause your video after each question to give yourself more time to answer. True or false? Districts must use the guiding documents template. False. Districts are not required to use the template. However, DEED strongly encourages districts to utilize the template to help ensure they are meeting the requirements for the Identification and Recruitment Plan, Quality Control Plan, Needs Assessment, Service Delivery Plan, and Evaluation Plan. True or false? If a district is not being monitored this year, they do not need to meet all requirements listed in the monitoring report. False. Districts must meet all requirements of the program regardless if they are being monitored or not. True or false? Districts must engage parents and guardians of migratory children in the planning and operation of their local migrant education program. True. Parent and family engagement is an integral part of all Title I programs, including the MEP. Research shows that parents play a significant role in the academic achievement of their children. Therefore, it is important for parents and schools to develop partnerships and build ongoing dialogues to improve student achievement. Title I supports parents and family engagement by enlisting individual parents to help their children do well in school. In order to receive MEP funds, districts must implement programs, activities, and procedures that effectively engage parents of migratory children. Once a district receives a Title I-C subgrant, they need to determine how they're going to use the funds. In this section, we will walk through 5 considerations the district needs to work through to determine if they can use their Title I-C funds on a specific cost. The first 2 considerations are around identified needs and strategies. 1. Does the activity or service address an identified need in the State Comprehensive Needs Assessment? And is it aligned to the strategies in the State Service Delivery Plan? Uses of Title I-C funds must address needs identified in the state CNA, and they must align with the strategies outlined in the state's SDP. As previously discussed, it is important for the district to familiarize itself with the state's guiding documents. 2. Are the funds being used to meet the identified needs that result from the child's migratory lifestyle and to permit them to participate effectively in school? All MEP costs must be directly correlated with educationally related activities provided to migratory children that enable them to succeed in school. The next 2 considerations are around other available resources. Does the activity or service supplement and not supplant non-federal funds? Uses of Title I-C funds must be in addition to, not in lieu of, other services that can or should be provided by the core educational program or by any other program. 4. Is the need already addressed by services available from other federal or non-federal programs? If there are other services available that address the needs of migratory children, then migratory children must be selected for and provided those services on the same basis as other eligible children prior to applying Title I-C funds. A strategy to use when determining if a specific service or activity can be funded through this program is to picture a cupcake. The cake part of the cupcake is the state and local funds. Title I-C regulations specifically applies the following rule. All federal funds under the Title I-C program shall supplement and not supplant all other non-federal funds. This makes it clear that MEP services are in addition to, not in lieu of, other services that can or should be provided by core educational programs or by any other state or local program. The frosting part of the cupcake is federal and non-federal services in which migratory children are eligible for. The MEP statute requires that Title I-C funds be used to address the needs of migratory children that are not addressed by services available from other federal or non-federal programs. This is very similar to the supplement not supplant rule, but it applies to services funded by federal or non-federal programs. In essence, this means that if there are other services available that address the needs of migratory children, including services provided with Title I-A, then migratory children must be selected for and provided those services on the same basis as other children prior to applying Title I-C funds. The cherry on top of the cupcake is Title I-C funds. A migratory child must receive the cake and the frosting before they can receive the cherry. Title I-C funds must be used to meet the identified needs of migratory children that result from their migratory lifestyle and permit these children to participate effectively in school. The final consideration is around the Uniform Grant Guidance Principles. 5. Are all costs reasonable and necessary and allocable or chargeable to the MEP relative to the benefit received? All Title I-C costs must be necessary to meet the purpose of the program and reasonable considering the amount of money being spent and the needs of the program. Activities supported by Title I-C funds must be consistent with the district's application for funds approved by deed. Now that we have gone through the general considerations, let's briefly talk about some general allowable uses of funds. Administering the program, such as the salary of a migrant coordinator. Identification and recruitment, such as salaries for recruiters and records managers. Continuous improvement cycle work, such as the comprehensive needs assessment activities, service delivery planning activities, and evaluation of the MEP. Providing supplemental instructional services, such as before and after school tutoring and summer programming, and support services, such as counseling, water safety, and necessary school supplies. Parent Advisory Council, or PAC, or other parent and family engagement activities, and professional development, such as training programs for school personnel to enhance their ability to understand and appropriately respond to the needs of migratory children. DEED created a Title I-C spending handbook that provides general guidance on how districts may spend funds under the Migrant Education Program. It is strongly recommended that districts review this document. The handbook can be found on DEED's Title I-C webpage. It is time for a quick knowledge check. Please feel free to pause your video after each question to give yourself more time to answer. True or false? It is allowable to use Title I-C funds to pay for families' migratory moves. False. Title I-C funds must be directly correlated with the educationally related activities provided to migratory children and youth that enable them to succeed in school. Title I-C funds may not be used to fund migratory moves. True or false? It is allowable to use Title I-C funds to provide training to staff on how to meet the needs of migratory children. True. Title I-C funds may be used for professional development for school personnel to enhance their ability to understand and appropriately respond to the needs of migratory children. True or false? It is allowable to use Title I-C funds for something that would happen in the absence of Title I-C funds. False. Title I-C funds must supplement and not supplant all other non-federal funds. MEP regulations make it clear that MEP services are in addition to, not in lieu of, other services that can or should be provided by core educational programs or by any other program. Therefore, if the service or activity would be occurring in the absence of Title I-C funds, then using Title I-C funds for this expense would be supplanting. A major part of the Title I-C Migrant Education Program is providing services to migratory children to address their unique educational needs. In this section, we will cover what supplemental services are and how service delivery should be prioritized. The U.S. Department of Education Office of Migrant Education has issued specific non-regulatory guidance to define what constitutes a service in the MEP. Because student success is the overarching goal in the MEP, services are a vital aspect of the program. Services are those educational or educationally related activities that directly benefit a migratory child, address a need of a migratory child consistent with the state's comprehensive needs assessment and service delivery plan, are evidence-based, or in the case of support services, are generally accepted practice, and are designed to enable the program to meet its measurable program outcomes and contribute to the achievement of the state's performance. There are two types of services, instructional and support. Instructional services are MEP-funded supplemental services that provide evidence-based instruction to migratory children in a subject area on a regular or systemic basis, usually for a predetermined period of time. It can include instruction provided by a MEP-funded teacher or a MEP-funded paraprofessional. It can include correspondence courses taken by a student. The one-time act of providing instructional packets to a child or family does not constitute an instructional service. Support services are MEP-funded supplemental services that provide support and advocacy to migratory children. These services include, but are not limited to, health, nutrition, counseling, and social services for migratory children, necessary educational supplies, and transportation. When selecting children for services, the district should 1. Identify the eligible migratory children with unique educational needs who reside in the area. 2. Determine the educational and educationally related needs of the children to be served. 3. Determine the focus of the program, such as instructional areas, based on a needs assessment. And 4. Select children with the greatest need for MEP services according to the priority for services. In accordance with the Priority for Services or PFS provision, districts must prioritize services to migratory children who have made a qualifying move within the previous one-year period and who are failing or most at risk of failing to meet the state's challenging academic standards or have dropped out of school. Districts may serve children who do not meet the Priority for Service criteria as long as they serve children who do meet the criteria first. For example, a MEP project that operates only in the summer may serve migratory children who reside in the area during the summer, as long as it gives priority for summer services to migratory children who meet the Priority for Services criteria. Refer to the current year's Records Manager Guide for more information on how PFS children are identified. In addition to children who meet the criteria of the PFS provision, the needs of preschool migratory children and migratory children who have dropped out of school must also be identified and addressed by districts as part of its effort to address the unique educational needs of migratory children more generally. Furthermore, districts must, in carrying out their programs and projects, address the unmet needs of preschool migratory children and migratory children who have dropped out of school. Under the Continuation of Services provision, school districts may choose to offer Continuation of Services, or COS, to migratory children whose eligibility has ended under the following conditions. 1. A child who ceases to be a migratory child during a school term shall be eligible for services until the end of such term, such as the fall term, spring term, or summer term. 2. A child who is no longer a migratory child may continue to receive services for one additional school year, but only if comparable services are not available through other programs. 3. Students who are eligible for services in secondary school may continue to be served through credit accrual programs until graduation. Please note that utilizing any of the COS provisions needs to be a continuation of services, that is, a migratory child must have previously received supplemental services through the MEP during his or her eligibility period in order to qualify for continuation of services. A formerly eligible child should not be receiving Title I-C services for the first time after his or her eligibility has ended. Be aware that children who have aged out of the program, graduated, or whose eligibility has ended due to a canceled COE and they do not have eligibility from a previous COE are not eligible for continuation of services. For purposes of the MEP, services are a subset of all activities that the MEP provides through its programs and projects. Although states and districts may spend MEP funds on many types of allowable activities, some of these activities do not constitute a service, such as identification recruitment or parent and family engagement activities. Services are distinct in that they are educational or educationally related activities provided to migratory children to enable them to succeed in school. Possible activities that are not services a district could fund are identification and recruitment, records management, administration of the program, migrant parent-family engagement, migrant parent meetings, and professional development. It is time for a quick knowledge check. Please feel free to pause your video after each question to give yourself more time to answer. True or false? Districts can only serve children identified as priority for services. False. Districts may serve children who do not meet the priority for services criteria, so long as they serve children who do not meet the criteria first. True or false? Districts can only provide services to currently eligible migratory children. False. In most cases, districts may only provide services to currently eligible migratory children. However, there are some instances where districts may provide continuation of services to previously eligible migratory children. True or false? Services funded with Title I-C funds must be supplemental, above and beyond what they would otherwise receive. True. Title I-C funds must supplement, not supplant, the use of non-federal funds. In addition, the statute also requires that Title I-C funds be used to address the needs of migratory children that are not addressed by services available from other federal or non-federal programs. There are several resources available to school districts operating a local migrant education program. DEED's Title I Part C webpage, found at education.alaska.gov/ESEA/Title I-C, has many resources and guidance documents available. This includes, but is not limited to, manuals on the identification and recruitment of migratory children, a spending handbook, templates, and the state guiding documents. In addition, you can find the current year's ESEA monitoring forms on DEED's forms page at education.alaska.gov/forms. The U.S. Department of Education's Office of Migrant Education Program website includes links to the statute, regulations, and non-regulatory guidance. They also sponsor a migrant education program coordination website at results.ed.gov. Thank you for the work you do to support Alaska's migratory children and youth. For more information and resources about the Alaska Migrant Education Program, visit our webpage at education.alaska.gov/ESEA/Title I-C. And remember, you can always find detailed information in your manual. You can connect with the Alaska Department of Education and Early Development through our website and on social media at Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Flickr, YouTube, and Vimeo.